Hello there, welcome to the channel. My name is Mace. This is going to be the very first review, and I decided to review um, Hiroshima Mon Amour, part of the Criterion collection. This is going to be spine number 196. Really kind of simple artwork on the front of it. I quite like the yellow lettering on the title on the front and the back. You pop it open and you've got your inside right here. Really kind of almost a little subtle image on the front, but one of the very first images that you see in the film. And this is the booklet, that comes with the film. And a cool little scene that we'll get to here in a little bit. What a film. This is my second time viewing it, and that was actually one of the first Criterions that I picked up way back when. Directed by Alain Resnais, French film director, 1959. Written by, I believe it's the screenplay and like a short either novel or excerpt kind of thing by Marguerite Duras, I believe is how you pronounce that name. Really beautiful film. Kind of a slow burn, but one that I feel like you really are watching this story really play out over hours spent in the city with the two main characters. The protagonists in the film are, to my knowledge, not named in the film. Typically referred to as her and him, usually he, she, even I think. And I think even IMDb lists them actual character names. However, I'm pretty sure that they're not physically named in the film itself. The female in the movie is played by Manuel Riva, to a beautiful T. She's perfect in the film. And the gentleman played by Eiji Okada, who's an architect in Japan, Hiroshima, and she is a French actress filming a movie in Japan at the time. And one of the first images that we see on the in the film. It's this juxtaposition of the two of them are having sex, making love, essentially. And the image you see is this embrace, basically, but they're covered in dirt, in ash and soot, and that kind of transitions slowly into this very like tantalizing image of now it's like sweat, like they've essentially been going at it for a long while. And it's an interesting kind of image that you mix the dirt and the ash, the grime, with this seductive sweat drenched kind of thing. It's an interesting thing, and that intro lasts for a good part of the first couple minutes of the film. It's 7 or 10 minutes, something. I don't know the exact time. It's a long time though, but they're kind of this conversation is happening as they're making love, and then at the same time it's interspersed with these images of memorials, museums, buildings, wreckage essentially of the atomic bomb in Hiroshima. And all three of it's kind of playing out. It's an interesting kind of play with the dialogue that's occurring and the images that are being shown. And you're very much kind of thrown into the fray of things as they kind of exit their night activities. They're in her hotel room, and even though it's black and white, you still get this kind of image of this really just nice looking hotel room. I don't know, for me, and she's out on the rooftop like sipping on some tea and stuff, and you can hear the kind of the city kind of waking up around her. It's a really, really kind of beautiful image. One thing about this film for sure is its editing. It plays a lot in this kind of flashback structure, and I must say that the editing in it is immaculately done. We're jumping from the present in Hiroshima to her memories from her time in France and her previous lover. I believe it's her husband. I'm not really quite sure exactly, but and then back to Hiroshima, and that's happening many times throughout the film. And I think, to nail that down, the editing had to be, top tier, and for me it was, in that regard. One thing about this film too that I noticed right away, especially on the second viewing, is the close-ups. Renee's work with his cinematographer and the framing of these characters was really beautiful, especially with Manuel Riva's character. She's framed in ways that are really quite beautiful, and really just tantalizing in a sense to look at. She has a very kind of youthful face, a young kind of face. I believe it was her first feature film in Hiroshima Mon Amour. I think she had come from the stage or doing television. I'm not quite sure, but definitely a first film for her, and she's framed so beautifully in so many instances in the film, where she looks very beautiful to look at, in a sense. And they kind of they kind of part their ways in the beginning of the film, and she goes and she's filming her movie, and then he shows up on the film set, and he is very much, he wants to be with her, he wants to be around her, he wants this kind of relationship, albeit maybe one that's happened very suddenly. He wants this thing, he wants to have continue it, basically. And she's maybe kind of having certain maybe limitations, or maybe not allowing herself, or doesn't want to allow herself to kind of stray down this path, and this leads into this moment in a probably one of my favorite scenes in the film, where they're in this tea room, this Japanese tea room. Again, another just really cool looking set, even though it's very simplistic and minimal in this black and white setting. And she's reminiscing about her past, and we see them about her husband. I think he was a German officer in the war in France, and this flashback, and she's, I think, here very much yearning about the past, not so much living in this kind of present moment. Excuse me. And he slaps her. He hits her in the face. But it was like I had to fast forward or rewind it back again, because I was like, it shocked me. But it didn't seem like it was in this abusive kind of thing. He didn't slap her and grab her or anything like that. It almost seemed like he was maybe trying to wake her up a little bit, kind of bring her back to the present, back to reality. She lets out this very kind of small grin after the fact of, I don't know if it was satisfaction or maybe kind of what just happened. But that whole sequence in the film, again, it's quiet, it's simple, coverage, it's very minimal, back and forth again on their frames. Again, the framing coming into play with in this scenario is quite beautiful. The film deals with memory, very deep conversations about memory, about the past, about the present. This film was, I think, kind of conceptualized as a anti-war documentary, and you can certainly see that in some of its cinematography in kind of the post-war Hiroshima and whatnot, and then kind of slowly evolved into this kind of love story of a film, so to speak. But the conversations in it too are again, it really feels like you're just watching this story play out between these two lovers. Maybe one that's maybe really serious about certain things, and the other's kind of having certain reservations and maybe certain limitations on where they want to go or how they want to approach things. There's a scene, I believe it's a little while after the tea room scenario, where Emanuela Riva's character is walking through the city in parts and back to her hotel room. And I immediately thought of the walking sequences with Jean Moreau in Elevator to the Gallows, which is also part of the Criterion collection, directed by Louis Malle. Fantastic film, great film. But there's the way Malle shoots her in Elevator to the Gallows, walking just through the city after this certain circumstance, was a little bit reminiscent of this film, of Riva kind of walking through the streets of Hiroshima. Again, simple scenes, but it just a really beautiful kind of image to look at, and a nice kind of memory back to that film as well. One thing for me that I typically notice in films a lot is the sound design. Love, the use of sound to tell stories. In this film, I think it's, when the music isn't playing and when characters aren't in dialogue with each other or with someone else, sound really is pushing and driving the story forward. There's a really simple scene where she's in her hotel room in the bathroom, and she washes her face, so she like dunks her head into the sink, and just the sound of the sink turning on and the water flowing and kind of filling up the sink, and as she puts her head in and lifts it up, and the water's kind of falling out of her hair and off her face, and just dripping back down into the sink. It's got this very pure kind of sound to it. It was such a really refreshing kind of just noise, to hear. Overall, the film, it's 90 minutes, so it's just about at an hour and a half. And it's this slow roll kind of thing, but it was really invigorating. It was a really just again, like I keep saying, this story is playing out with these two characters, but it was such a refreshing kind of view. This kind of black and white, French New Wave film. It was such a really beautiful film to watch, and one I absolutely would recommend to sit through. Some people might be kind of turned off by the kind of austere slowness of it. Definitely one I believe pays off in the end. With that being said, I probably didn't cover everything I wanted to. I've got my notes right here in front of me on my little tripod, but nonetheless, thank you for stopping by. Thank you for watching movies. I love watching films, so I look forward to talking about more films in the future and showing off, some of the films that I have in my collection. Definitely more Criterions to come, within the next few months. There's a Barnes & Noble sale going on right now, so I'll definitely be kind of trying to update my collection a little bit. So with that being said, thank you guys for stopping by. Have a good day.